It is the Vol View. Here we go. Roll the tape.
Football time in Tennessee.
The latest edition of the Vol View right now on Carving It Up Live. Very exciting Week 2 matchup for the Tennessee Volunteers. They got a game against Austin Peay this weekend in Neyland Stadium in Knoxville. Kickoff at 5 Eastern in Neyland Stadium. That game, by the way, is on ESPN Plus and the SEC Network Plus for fellow Vols fans looking to obviously catch this game. So, real quick, and then I'll get into sort of my larger point for what the segment's for. Joe Milton played a very good game against the Virginia Cavaliers last week. Got off to a little bit of a rough start, had some accuracy problems, which has been a bugaboo of his from time to time, but had a good completion percentage, went 21 for 30, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. QBR is not mind-blowing. It's about 68, so, it's above average. It's 0 to 100. 68's not bad, but the story for the Vols in this game, and I think is his, and I've talked about this on Carving It Up for a year, is so incredibly underrated in the Josh Heupel offense, is how effectively they run the ball and how that opens up everything for the passing game. Almost making, and this feels weird for Tennessee's quarterbacks, be it Hendon Hooker the last couple of years and now Joe Milton this season, it almost relegates them to a certain extent as amazing game managers because the offense is able to scheme these receivers open, because the defense has to respect the running game. Tennessee, albeit against a bad Virginia defense, ran for 287 yards. That's about 5.5 yards a clip. 5 touchdowns on the day. You had Dylan Sampson going off for 3 touchdowns. Jalen Wright, Jabari Small. Jalen Wright went for over 100 yards himself. Joe Milton ran for a couple of tuds as well. And by the way, before I get to Joe Milton and this, the main point of this segment, Tennessee tomorrow is going to play Austin Peay. It's the home opener at Neyland Stadium, sold out crowd. It's going to be electric as always, as it is in Neyland, in Knox Vegas. And Tennessee's going to honor, for those of you that don't know this name, Condredge Holloway. He was the SEC's first ever black starting quarterback. He started for Tennessee 51 years ago tomorrow, back in 1972. For Tennessee, he was a true trailblazer in the sport. And Joe Milton happens to wear his number 7. And the Vols are going to honor, I should have probably put up the picture on the show, but Joe Milton is going to honor Condredge Holloway. And the Vols are going to honor Condredge Holloway in wearing special smoky gray uniforms on Saturday night against Austin Peay. So it's going to be a great opportunity to pay respect and pay tribute to Condredge Holloway, who is still with us, has been a great ambassador for Tennessee Vols football and Tennessee sports as a whole. So for Joe Milton, obviously, by the way, I have Tennessee win this game. I'm looking at ESPN. I don't even see a Vegas line right now. I'm trying to find it. I don't see a Vegas line, so I'm sure it's going to be through the roof. Tennessee, by the way, was 12th ranked last week, which I thought was, I talked about this a month ago, was absurd. Absurd. I think Clemson certainly validated what I said about them going into the season. That's neither here nor there. Tennessee now ranked 9th, which I feel is a bit more appropriate. They could certainly move higher as this season goes on. They're going to go 11-1, make the college football playoff. I maintain that. For Joe Milton, though, and here's what I want to get into today. So we have as much talent at the quarterback position. I've said for the last couple of years in the show, it's a quarterback's league in talking about the NFL, and you see that trend kind of happening in college. There's a lot more college offenses coming in the NFL as of late that you've seen. But just in the Pac-12 alone, and we'll talk about Caleb Williams in the second segment. You got Caleb Williams. You've got Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. I think Shedeur Sanders is the third best college quarterback in America behind Caleb and behind Drake May. And he's in a legit battle with Drake May, in my view, as the second best QB in college football. You've got Michael Penix Jr., the lefty out of Washington, who is deadly accurate and has a big-time arm as well. I'm not as high on Bo Nix as a lot of people are, but Bo Nix is a very talented young quarterback at Oregon. By the way, at Florida State, you got Jordan Travis. In Texas, again, not quite as high on him as a lot of people are. Quinn Ewers, talented young quarterback. And then you've got Joe Milton, who's kind of the wild card in this sort of quarterback discussion going next year's draft. So Joe Milton is a senior. He will be eligible he's been eligible. He'll go into the NFL draft presumably next spring. Where does he fit in this mix among the most talented QBs? We know Caleb Williams, whenever draft that he comes out in, again, more on that in this next segment. Caleb Williams is going to go number one. Let's just assume for the sake of argument he goes number one in the 2024 draft. Then you're going to have a debate between Drake May, Shedeur Sanders, assuming Shedeur comes back. And a lot of this is factors on which quarterbacks decide to stay and decide to leave. Because I think there's a possibility Shedeur Sanders stays at Colorado to play one more year under Deion Sanders. So that's within the realm of possibility as well. So let's say you got Williams, Drake May, and let's just say Shedeur Sanders stays at Colorado. So then you're going to have probably Michael Penix Jr. Then I think the debate starts for Joe Milton. Because what Joe Milton is, I was talking to Parnell, who hosts the Commanders Demand podcast here on The Grid, does a great job. I was talking to him about this today. He was asking me about what I think about Joe Milton. He really likes him. I said, I think Joe Milton is going to be next year's draft's Anthony Richardson. Now, he's not quite as athletic as Anthony Richardson, but I think Richardson's my question with him is accuracy, but that's something that I think can be fixed, especially if you're this incredible talent. I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback, including Josh Allen, who has a bigger arm than Joe Milton. There is a video online from this, and albeit he's not wearing pads, but there's a video from when Joe Milton was at the Manning Passing Academy, and he threw a football 90 yards. Now, the football's bigger in the NFL, and Joe Milton wasn't wearing pads. That's insane. That just human beings should not be able to do that, but Joe Milton can. He can stretch the field as well as any quarterback in college football. He reminds me again of he'll sort of be the project of this draft. He doesn't have the overall package like a Caleb Williams. He's not the passer, the elite passer in and out of the pocket he's not as good of a passer, I think, in the pocket as Drake May. He's not as good of a passer outside the pocket as Shedeur Sanders. Again, to me, those are the three clear best quarterbacks in America right now in college football. But Joe Milton's not going to be in discussion, in all likelihood, to be in that top 5 mix. Again, there's going to be a lot of teams next year that are going to need quarterbacks. Arizona's going to need a quarterback. Tampa Bay's going to need a quarterback. Are there some other teams down the road? Does Atlanta decide to kick the tires? Atlanta's got some good weapons that are on the cheap, not costing much for them. What if Joe Milton ends up with a coach that kind of tailors to his successes? What if it is, I know we kind of laugh at them as a franchise historically, or I should say historically, within the last 2 or 3 decades, Washington. What if Eric Bieniemy is your head coach? Eric Bieniemy comes from the Andy Reid coaching tree, which historically has been very good and has been very successful with young quarterbacks. If he ends up with Eric Bieniemy in Washington, albeit that's a brutal division with Philly and Dallas and the New York Giants, but you got the weapons of Terry McLaurin. Offensive line needs some work, but they've got some nice players there. Defensively, they're as sound as anybody in that division. What if you get Joe Milton in Washington? If Sam Howell maybe doesn't pan out into what Commanders fans may hope for him to be, does he develop under Eric Bieniemy? Maybe has a rough rookie year. Again, the only accuracy, again, I think if you're a raw talent, which Joe Milton is, that can be fixed. And again, his accuracy issues, again, he went 21 for 30 in this game. It's not like it's a situation where Anthony Richardson barely completed over 50% of his passes at Florida. It's a little bit of a confidence issue in the sense of you probably won't see it a ton against Austin Peay because Tennessee will win that game, obviously. But against Florida in the Swamp next Saturday, against Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, against maybe the biggest game of the college football season, regular season, Tennessee playing Georgia at home in the second to last week of the regular season. If he makes a mistake, maybe airmails a guy, maybe underthrows a guy, or something maybe doesn't go right, you see, not in a like a condescending sense to his teammates, but really towards himself, you see a little bit of a dropping the shoulders, and it kind of affects him the next 2 to 3 plays. the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, and even in college football, have quick memories. You got to snap out of it. You got to move on. You got to move on to the next play. That play happened. You can't do anything to change it. You adjust. You move on. Joe Milton has struggled with that in the past. That's something that I think his predecessor at the quarterback position at Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, did a great job of. Like if Hendon Hooker, the rare mistakes that he did make, okay, move on from it. Let's go to the next play. Joe Milton has struggled with that at times. If he can correct that here at Tennessee this last year there, and if he ends up with a coach that can really bring out the best out of him from a talent and from an intangible perspective, man, we could be seeing the second coming of Josh Allen and Joe Milton. He's got the arm. He's more accurate than Josh Allen was coming out of Wyoming. He's a big, strong athlete. He's mobile. Not quite as mobile as Josh, but mobile. It's the little stuff. It's the tiny, it's the confidence stuff that he needs to work out at Tennessee, and then whoever he gets drafted by the NFL. He's a first-round talent, no question. But what he does tomorrow and moving on the rest of the season will go a long way at determining whether or not he's a surefire first-round talent. Very excited to see Joe Milton tomorrow. See the Vols tomorrow. Again, I didn't even create a graphic for this game because I didn't think there was any point in doing it. Austin Peay's not a Power 5 school. Again, Vegas doesn't even have a line, at least here on ESPN. I'll say Tennessee wins. They'll win easily. I'll go 56-7. That's what I got. 56-7. So, again, by the way, that is the Vol Viewpoint. Once again, here on Carving It Up Live. Until next week for a big matchup against Florida. Go Vols, 56-7 over Austin Peay. Let's go to 2-0 and let's keep moving up the top 25. The Vol View. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.